right, we've got some guests back here. We've got some city staff as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. It is 7:01, and I want to be conscious of everybody's time. So my name is TJ Gilmore, and I am the mayor of Lewisville. And tonight we're going to talk about what I consider issues and ideas and things that are going on in the city that are important. And I just want to bring them up and make sure that people are aware of what's going on, different resources that are available. So we'll go ahead and we're going to start. So as we go through this video, just remember, I'm going to say slide, and then there's a slide that's going to change. So slide, and we'll take a look. So we'll go ahead and build this out. Go ahead and move forward to the, there we go. So today, the topics we're going to talk about today are going to be the public safety programs that we've got going on. So the first one I want to touch on is our new program called Co-Care. And then the next piece of that is the new public safety building that you all may have heard about back in November. And we've made some progress there. The next thing we'll be talking about will be neighborhood resources. And the three things that I want to touch on in neighborhood resources are, of course, our code enforcement team, our neighborhood resource officers team, as well as some programs that I think are pretty key and critical, and actually are great to know about here as we get into the spring and people are starting to come outdoors and get out and meet their neighbors. So some great new tools. Next, beyond that, is Colorpalooza, which is going to be this Saturday. We'll touch on that, as well as elections and board applications. So if you want to be involved in a board or commission to help grow the community, there's an opportunity here we're going to talk about. Next slide. All right, so let's talk a little bit about our Co-Care program. So the Co-Care program actually came out of different resources and tools within the community. I think one of the biggest ones that was an impact to me is when I was down in Houston, and this is back in probably about 2013, 2014. I was actually at a restaurant, and there was a gentleman having some sort of issue out on the sidewalk, and you could see it through the plate glass window, and then there were lights, and you think you know what's going to happen. And what ended up happening as I looked out there is I saw a police officer, I saw an EMT, and I saw somebody that I didn't recognize. They weren't wearing a firefighter's uniform or a police officer's uniform. But what I came to find out afterwards is that they were a mental health practitioner. And so these three people were there to help this individual, and they were having a mental health break there in public. And so these three folks came out to help de-escalate the situation and get that individual the tools and the resources that they needed. And so that was, back in 2014. And we've had other escalations that have happened across the country where the response may not have been in the same measure as to the problem. And so our police department, our fire department, they all looked at this and said, hey, we need some better tools for our officers. Our officers are running into these types of challenges, and they need more training, they need more specialization, they need better resources so that the response isn't go to jail. The response is appropriate for the episode or the challenge that's being met out in the field. So what you're seeing with this Co-Care program, and this was approved back in June of 2021, and it's got its feet underneath it. It takes a lot of training. It actually takes almost 2 years for our EMTs to actually get fully certified in this process because they have to be peace officers as part of the program. But the Co-Care team consists of 2 police officers, 3 fire department, and then we have 1 mental health practitioner from MHMR, and that's a state agency. State of Texas provides those resources or that department, but we are actually paying the resources for that dedicated mental health practitioner for us. It runs roughly, what have I got up there if I can even read anymore, roughly $800,000 a year. There's a setup, we have to get the vehicles and all that stuff, but in that ballpark. But folks, it's about getting the right tools to the right people at the right time. Next slide. And the reason this is important is because the sheer volume of calls that we get. 1 in 10 of our police and our EMS calls are mental health related. And that's a statistic that comes from across the country. In some parts of the country, it's a little higher. Some parts it's a little lower. But the average is 1 in 10 of our calls are mental health related. And before we had a Co-Care team, we might have an officer that had some understanding of processes and tools and resources, but not every officer every time. And so this allows our officers, our EMTs, if there's a health issue going on, if there's a mental health issue, we can divert them and not send them up to county. We don't have to send them to a jail, which might escalate the problem. We actually can get them the resources that they need when they need it. So roughly 25% of law enforcement involved fatalities involve severe mental illness. And so that's yet another tool and a reason why this type of program has been so successful. I don't want my officers harmed. They're out there doing a great job for us. I don't want to put them in any worse position than they need to be able to keep the public safe. And so this is a great tool to help them keep the public safe, keep themselves safe, and again, more efficient use, I think, of tax dollars in the fact that, we don't have to worry about lawsuits. We don't have to send somebody to the county jail, which is a very expensive proposition, to keep them housed and medicated in a county facility when a mental health facility might be the better fit. Next slide. So the pieces that they will work on and that are emphasized with this co-care team are behavioral disorders. They'll deal with substance abuse. They'll deal with our aging population because a lot of mental health challenges do come as you get older, and especially since we have an older population that's aging at home, and we don't tend to be in groups and have community as much as we used to. And so it becomes kind of a challenge when somebody's living at home by themselves. We also have arson that falls in this category, as well as homelessness issues. So really excited about this team. They're covering a lot of bases. I think we'll continue to grow it. We're having success with it that I'm hearing. We're very early in the process. But if you're out in Lewisville and you see where there's a police officer, there's a fireman, and there's somebody else wearing an official-looking jacket, but you're not sure, it's probably our co-care team, and that's what they're doing in the community. Next slide. I want to talk a little bit about our public-approved bond election for our new public safety building. So up on Main Street, if you go to Main and Valley, you know that we have our fire department, we have our jail, the library, all that right there in the community annex area. Those are some of the oldest buildings that we have in the city. The police department is over 30 years old. If you've been in it, you know that it has been way outworn. And so same with our fire control, central fire station. And what I wanted to do right now is just say thank you to Lewisville residents, because back in November of last year, you actually approved a bond election to provide the funding for this building. So that dollar and what we've promised as city staff and city council is that it would not impact the tax rate. So we really thank you for the trust. And I know our first responders, when they get this new state-of-the-art building, it's going to be a great place for them to work, and it's going to be a safe place for the community. Next slide. So this slide is a little far away for me to read, and I wish my eyesight were what it once was. But the building itself, you can actually find this. Community Impact newspaper put this out as a one sheet. And this is kind of a study, but it'll come out to the corner here. And what it'll contain is it will contain a new police headquarters. It will contain a new fire headquarters. It will contain an expanded central or station 1, so 5 bays instead of the current 3. It will have training facilities. It will have our emergency operations center, and then behind you can see kind of a secondary red rectangle there. That will be a parking structure. Right now, all of our police vehicles live in uncovered parking, and that's a real challenge for me, because every time we get into spring this time of year and I see the wind and the hail and everything that comes through, and I think, okay, if we get hit by one of those, how many of our police vehicles are going to be taken out of service? And that to me is a real risk that we deal with. And we've been lucky, but I don't want to count on luck. So this parking structure is going to actually protect those vehicles, and a little less sun on our vehicles, we might get a little bit more time out of them as well. So I think that's a great thing. It's also going to loosen up a little bit more parking for that area, just because we have a lot more going on. I want to thank the county for their investment, the big county building right across the street. And of course the library has got all sorts of great tools and resources there as well. But that's what you're going to be seeing for that project. Now we're slowly letting the contracts out. It's going to be a 2 or 3 year process, probably more like 3, just because I know, building houses, I can't imagine how building this will be any faster. But we've got a great team that's managing the project, and it's moving as fast as we can. Next slide. All right, so the next thing I wanted to mention here is code enforcement. And this is, again, wanted to talk really about our code enforcement team. Most folks think about our code enforcement as a stick. These guys are out there, and all they're doing is they're whacking you for high weeds and grass or something on the outside of your building. And I will tell you right now, our code enforcement team, they are our eyes on the ground to make sure that people are part of a community and that they're getting help. Several years ago, we've added a lot of great new tools to their toolkit, so that if people are aging at home and they want to stay at home, but maybe they can't afford doing the gutters or doing some work on the outside. Our code enforcement actually can help get them hooked up with city grants to help them stay at home and help them repair their home. I'll give you a great example. One of my good friends, she's a divorced mom. This was a few years ago, but when she got divorced, she got a new home. And did the inspections, everything. She thought she had done it right, but it ended up she had some real significant foundation issues. Well, she actually reached out to the code enforcement team, and they told her that, hey, you might want to try this property improvement program that we have. And sure enough, she was able to get a grant, and it was able to help her stabilize her home and make it a livable space, and she didn't have any sewerage issues because of it. So this is one of the tools that we use to be able to help people stay at home and support those homeowners that are out there maybe having a little challenge making ends meet. And it gives our code enforcement a tool other than just, you got to do this, you got to do this. It's a way for them to get you to help. Now, what's cool about our code enforcement tool here is if you go onto the city website and you look for code enforcement, you can actually find a map, has all their contact information, get to know your code enforcement officer. You can use an app on the phone. We have our City of Lewisville app, and you can put in requests. They get followed up on there. Actually, it's better than calling 911 or some other phone number because it's ticketed and it has a tracking number that goes through the system. But I did want to tell you about some tools here on the website, and there's 6 great myths about our code enforcement that I'd like to refer you to. First is that code officers only respond to complaints and they don't actively patrol, go out and look for other stuff. They're only complaint-based. The truth is our city has 7 enforcement districts, 4 building inspectors districts, and 1 officer is in each of those districts. They spend time investigating complaints that have been received, but about 96% of their time during an average week is spent patrolling commercial and residential districts to look for potential code violations. Those inspectors have about the same ratio of complaints to their active patrol tickets that they create. Issue or myth number 2 is that they only work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, so you can go ahead and get your violations in on the evenings and the weekends. Well, the truth is it's uncommon for them to work after sundown because those violations are harder to spot, but they regularly work evening hours, and there's at least 1 code officer on duty every weekend. In fact, Saturday is usually a very busy time because I see them picking up bandit signs just like I do. So our team works all the time to keep our community safe and put together. Code officers give as many tickets as possible to raise money for the city. I can tell you right now, there is not a single ticket, fine, penalty that the city does that raises money in the way you think. It's going to generate funds, but it does not generate anything that we budget against. That is not the purpose of it. The purpose is that, quite frankly, we're trying to get compliance. In fact, the first interaction you're going to have with code enforcement, and I've had it twice, so I'm a resident too. I've had code enforcement come to me, and the first experience you have with code enforcement, if you don't talk to them immediately when they knock on the door, is that they leave you a document. And that document sets a request on what they want you to do. And if you have any questions, that code enforcement officer's name and information is right there on the form. And they will help walk you through what's not working, what needs to be fixed. Very first, it is not a ticket, it is not a fine, it is not a penalty, it is a please do this by this time. And here's the information you need. It's a great service, makes it work, and keeps everybody happy. Because quite frankly, we live in a community, so we have to work with our neighbors. And so code helps to do that. They pick and choose complaints they investigate. That is not true. Every complaint is in a ticket system. It is processed. It is held accountable. I've got one of my inspection chiefs right here, and they follow through on all of that. We keep it in a big digital system, frankly, folks, which is why I recommend the app, because if you call, it doesn't get tracked as easily. If it's in the app already assigns a tag to it. And then code officers ignore code violations by some people or in some areas of the city. I think my previous example proves the point. So I was city council when I had both of those code violations, and it's fine. It's just part of living in a community. You know, we all get busy, things happen. We might have to get rid of some extra weeds, or that part of the house that you didn't look at for a while, somebody else saw and said, not so good. So the code is your friend. They're trying to help the neighborhood, and they're trying to keep things going. So really, really appreciate those guys. Get to know them. Get to know your code officers. And I would recommend, they want to know you. They want to know the neighborhood. Quite frankly, they know the neighborhood pretty well because we keep them in specific geographies. So next slide. The other resource tool that I'd like to emphasize tonight is our neighborhood resource officers. So just like each neighborhood has a code enforcement officer, each of our neighborhoods also have a police officer, a neighborhood resource officer who has specific tools and skills to help the neighborhood. So these NROs, if you have non-emergency police concerns in the neighborhood, they can be your point of contact. They can help you navigate if there's something going on in the community that you're not sure is on the up and up. They can help with that. But they like to come out to the block parties, guys. They'll help you build something like that. If you want to do a community block party or you want to get people together, your neighborhood resource officer is there for you. They want to reach out and be part of that. If you want to put together a crime watch, they're there for you. So these neighborhood resource officers, again, they're just like you. They want to build strong neighborhoods and community, and instead of waiting until somebody shows up with a car and flashing lights, reach out to them, have a conversation. We find that the best policing that we can get is community policing, where the officers are engaged, you know who they are, they know the neighborhood. It just makes things move a lot smoother, and when things start to get out of line, there's somebody there who knows what's going on right at the front end. So I would encourage you on both of these. They're both great website tools within our City of Lewisville website, so you can check out our Neighborhood Resource Officer section and our Code Enforcement Officer section. Next slide. Now, in addition to those two people for each of your neighborhoods, we have programs available. I mentioned the Property Enhancement Program. Those are grants that are available to residents, so you might want to check those out. We have what's called a Neighborhood Enhancement Program. If you see an area in your neighborhood, maybe there's an empty lot somewhere in the neighborhood that's perhaps owned by the city, is not really a park, or maybe there's an entryway to the neighborhood that you want to spruce up, or you've got some ideas on, hey, if the city could help me with, maybe $500, we could get something really cool built for the neighborhood. That's what that Neighborhood Enhancement Program does. It helps with programming. It helps with ideas within the neighborhood. There's some parameters around it, but it's pretty creative in how it can kind of help give that seed money for those core projects. If I live in a neighborhood and I'm like, I'm not sure what neighborhood my neighborhood is, maybe you want to get new signs for that neighborhood, the street signs, get a little neighborhood sign topper so that people know when they drive into your neighborhood that neighborhood is Valley 1 or Vista 2. We can do that, and that's part of what this program is designed for. It's kind of hidden. I'm hopeful that now that we're out of COVID, people are going to start engaging with these programs a bit more, so I wanted to get that out there. We have a Love Your Block program. So again, these are tools and resources to help build community. So the Love Your Block program also gives you opportunities for engagement, opportunities to volunteer. So you want to check that part of the website out as well. And then finally, we have the TLC, Together Lewisville Coalition. And I'm hopeful to see that again. That really, with COVID, it's kind of slowed down, but it really focuses on community members, not-for-profits, churches, education, those businesses, trying to get them all together and say, hey, there's a need, how can we fill that need? So if you're a business and you're looking for ways to get your employees more engaged or more volunteer opportunities, this is a great place to go. If you're a church and you're looking for ways to get plugged in and help, it's a great place to go. Because remember, those NROs and those code enforcement officers, they know people in the neighborhoods that might need some help. And so the city can be, we're connected. The city can maybe be the glue that puts those people who can best help together. City can't do everything. We encourage folks to get involved. And of course, with something like the Together Lewisville Coalition, it's a great way to get plugged in, get involved, and figure out how to volunteer, give back, or maybe get resources that you might need for your organization or for people that you know. Next slide. Now, in 2 days, Colorpalooza. So if you haven't been to Colorpalooza lately, which none of us have, it's time to come on out. They've actually extended the hours this year, so it's from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. It's in Old Town Lewisville. Vendors, art, food, super kid-friendly. We've got the lion dancers, the Chinese lion dancers are coming. I'm really excited about that. I don't know if you've ever seen the big dancing lions, but they are cool, and I can't do it. But I'm really excited about that. You have a tie-dye station, so if you want to make tie-dyed shirts, that's awesome. But it's just a great day to come hang out. It's out in the open air, out in Wayne Ferguson Plaza, which is beautiful. Come out and see some of the native plants that we've been putting out in the area. Huge shout out to our Parks Department. They've been doing a phenomenal job getting everything cleaned up and ready to go. It looks like spring out there. We had a Dallas group of folks yarn bomb the walkway up there. So if you've seen Wayne Ferguson Plaza, there's all these beautiful trees and along the walkway. Well, they have all been wrapped in rainbows of yarn. So it's really cool. Great photo opportunity. Just a great opportunity to get out and have a good time this Saturday. Next slide. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't remind people that we have our non-partisan city elections going on soon. How soon? April 25th. So there are 3 Lewisville City Council seats up for election. 2 of them are uncontested. The third one is a new seat, and by voter approval, we added a new seat because we annexed Castle Hills this last year. So by adding that 16 to 18,000 in population, we felt that it was important to get more representation on council, and so we have a contested seat. I'd ask you guys to go out, get informed, but Election Day is May 7th. Early voting begins on the 25th. If you need information on where to vote or go, you can go to, again, City of Lewisville website, and they will direct you to Denton Elections, and there's more information on the city website as well. In addition to those 3 city council places, I would highly recommend that you take some time to learn about the candidates for LISD. Lewisville Independent School District is also going to be on that ballot. And of course, the school district is the #1 taxing entity. So if you didn't, you're going to be getting your home appraisals. Mine came in the mail today. And so be aware of who's leading the entities that have the #1 impact on your taxes. And so there's some great candidates out there, but all of the seats are contested. So go ahead, get some education, but please go out and vote. Lewisville and Texas in general is a low voting state, especially in things like local elections. There'll probably be anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 people who vote in this election, and Lewisville is a city of almost 130,000 people. So that means your vote counts for anywhere from 60 to 110 people, depending on how the math works out. But your vote matters. It matters more in these elections than any other election. So please take some time, learn about the candidates. If you don't know anything about them or don't know where to find them, simply hop on social media and ask somebody. They're going to tell you. You can find me just with a Google search. I can tell you where to get information. So that is all of the pieces that I have as far as the election goes. Now on the bottom there, I did want to talk a little bit about board applications. A lot of folks get involved, their first involvement, whether it's a community or not with a city, is by getting involved on a board or a commission. We have several boards and commissions in Lewisville, and we keep those applications for a year because sometimes life happens and people move on and off. But this is the time of year where we start putting people on boards, people term out, and so we need to get a good backlog of applications. Now, the application process has changed over the years, and now it is completely online, so it's super easy. Just go onto the City of Lewisville website, cityoflewisville.com, and type boards and commissions or board application, and it'll pop up. The search engine's really good on there. If you're here local tonight, I've actually brought a QR code and some information. You can actually scan the QR code, and you can go see what boards or commissions are interesting to you and apply there. Folks, we are an incredibly diverse and quite frankly, one of the top 30 largest cities in Texas. There's a lot of opportunity to be involved. There's a lot of opportunity for your voice to be heard. We would love for you to be on a board or commission. So the only way we can do that, though, is if we get you an application. So if you have questions about that, again, hit the city website. You can talk to the city secretary or talk to any of your city council members or me, the mayor, and we'll figure out how to get you plugged in. Next slide. And that is all I have for tonight, but wanted to kind of give you, I know there's a lot of information there, it's pretty quick, but I wanted to, be respectful of your time and let you know, hey, your city's here. We're coming out of COVID, trying to figure out where I plug in, where I connect, what's available, how does the city work for me? How are my tax dollars working for me? Well, these, I think, are some great examples, especially as we're getting out into the springtime and people are getting back involved. So I want to thank everybody who is here tonight. If there are questions online or if anybody here has questions, I'll be happy to take them. I also want to thank all the staff members who are here tonight to support me. It's almost feel like one of those tightrope walkers because I always wonder, am I saying something wrong? I've got to make sure I'm getting it, because our city staff, if you don't know, Texas deals with a strong city manager form of government. So your council and mayor, it's not a paid position. We absolutely are you call them volunteers, not politicians. We are here to be public servants, and it's these professionals that I count on to be good stewards of our tax dollars and to take what I hear from residents and what we hear from residents and turn that into action. So folks, if you see that purple Martin driving around, those people are working hard for us, and you can be assured that the tax dollars that we spend in Lewisville we're getting every value we can out of it. So I appreciate you for watching. I appreciate you for your time. If you have any questions, I'll be here. Do we have anything on the I don't know if we've activated questions on YouTube's. So anybody in the audience? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Gilmore. I'm the resident of VRE, Vista Ridge Estate. I heard several rumors, that the crime rate in our neighborhood is increasing. Of course, from the population that when we moved here, it was 65,000, now it's 130. Of course, the number of cases is higher, but I'm not sure. I heard the rumor is that along our neighborhood, especially near the apartment, there have a lot of crime. Can you clarify whether this is the true or this is just a rumor?
So I can't speak to your specific neighborhood. I know that our police chief, who is here, will be able to speak to you about it. Here's what I can tell you about Lewisville. Lewisville has an incredibly low crime rate for its size. That doesn't mean that there's no crime. It just means that our rate is very low. We have a great police department. We have a great response. In fact, when I go and ride with the police department, I love it because as we're going along, I see where residents call in and they say, hey, I've got a drunk driver, or hey, I need this. So it's our residents that help keep us safe. Our police can only do so much. Now, I have 3 kids. I raised 3 kids here. Lewisville's safe. It's absolutely safe. If you feel unsafe, I understand. I appreciate it, and I'm more than happy to get you plugged into people to help you with that. If we need to have close patrol for certain things, if you need to meet your neighborhood resource officer, those are wonderful things. But I do know that the statistics for Lewisville are great as far as crime and the incidence of crime within Lewisville. That doesn't mean you can't feel unsafe. It's okay to feel that way. Something might have changed, in which case we need to talk with the police department and figure out how we can have a conversation. But is it a rumor? Absolutely. Should we continue to keep our eyes out as we get more people? And of course, we have I-35, which can be challenging. Absolutely. And that's just part of being a good neighbor. Does that help? Okay. Thank you. Well, and I know Chief will get you real numbers, so he'll be able to help you with that. Other questions? All right. With that, we'll go ahead and I'll be here for questions or everything, but we'll say goodbye to the YouTube folks, and thank you guys for your time.